On the Review tab, you'll see a lot of those things we've covered in the last few sessions, such as clean, trim, substitute, character, and so forth. Upper, lower, proper. I won't go over these because those should be fresh on your mind, but let's go on to other. Here, we're going to try some new examples. Notice this first function, convert. We're converting from feet into meters. Oh, great function. We're going to cover this more in Chapter 10, but let's take a look at it and understand a little bit of what it does. So I'm going to hit the FX. We see that we have to put in feet and M in quotes, and let's go to help. Wow, I can convert all sorts of things. Grams to slugs to grains, tons, meters to inches to yards to light years. All sorts of time, pressure, force, energy, joules to electron volts to watt hours, power, magnetism, temperature, volume, from modern teaspoons to cups to quarts to gallons to liters to U.S. oil barrels or U.S. bushels. And areas. Bytes to bits and bits to bytes. Speeds. Knots to miles per hour. And notice there's a bunch of prefixes we can use. We'll talk more about those in Chapter 10. Okay, let's go back. A great and powerful function that we have available to us to do all sorts of things. But there was a few things that didn't do. Notice in this next one we have hex to decimal. We're changing from hexadecimal to decimal, and vice versa, or from binary to decimal, or decimal to octagonal. We can go all these different bases with different functions that have been named for them. Sometimes, when we have data we brought in, we want to classify it. A very good way to do that is quickly build a small table of the different classifications you're interested in, and based on the values that you have, I will say VLOOKUP. And the value is 24, comma, this is the table, and I'll make it absolute. And then the column number is the second one in this case. And can it be approximate? Yes, definitely. And so we put it in, 24 goes in that range, and so forth. Now these are nice, they have ranges of numbers, and we could have done some of that using a pivot table and so forth to bring those into groupings. But what if I had groupings like I wanted kids, teenagers, young adults, and adults, and maybe older people? I could put those names in instead. Moving on down to randomizing the rows. As an auditor, I often had to take a random sample. To do that, one way we can use is just the rand function. And copy it down. Now, if I'm using invoices or such that are in a particular order and range, I could use rand between. But this is great for a lot of purposes. Now that I have some random numbers by here, I'll just click on any one of them. Notice we have Barbara, David, and Elizabeth. And I'll come up here and sort, and it's going to sort those names. Now it's Robert, Jennifer, John. I click on sort again. It's now Elizabeth, James, and David. Mary, Maria, and Elizabeth. Again, a random selection. In this case, maybe we're wanting to pair up people randomly. So I'll take Mary and Maria, Elizabeth and Jennifer, James and Richard, Patricia and David, and so forth. Matching text in a list. Oh boy, we have a long list, And this could be in the hundreds or thousands of different names in our organization, and a list of those members that have resigned. Maybe we want to send out some benefits or invitations to all of our members. But now we have the resigned people in there, we want to purge them from our data. So let's do that by creating, and I'll use this function right here. I'll come up here and say equals if, and I'm going to count if. First of all, it says, what is the range? Well, that's all of these people who have resigned, at least their numbers, and I'll make that absolute so that we can copy it down. And it says the criteria. Well, that's right here, the member number. And I'll put in a closing parentheses. And then I need to say, is it greater than 0? Or if I just left count if, it would be 0, 1, or if there's multiple, 2 or 3 times their number was entered, it'd be that, and I could leave it as that as well. The if statement would still work. And we'll put equals to resigned. Now I don't have to put the negative, but I'll go ahead and do it here, just a blank, 2 double quotes together. And I don't see it. Why? Because that first one didn't resign. We could have looked down and done this by hand and said, well, 35, 584, 4, that's not in there. 15, 85, 44, oh, that is. One by one, but it would be real easy to miss something. Whereas now with this formula, we can look down and see exactly who resigned, and we could sort by that and delete all those members in one fell swoop. We've cleaned up our database. We're ready to work with it.